most of you may not know, I'm a half-human, half-dragon shapeshifter. I was doing some exploring a while back in an area that had been known for some very powerful crystals. Now, the area I was looking in required me to be smaller so that other things would not be destroyed. I had shrunk down to a pocket-sized dragon to find what I was looking for. Unfortunately for me, there were also brigands in the same area, and they were invisible and silent. Imagine my surprise to be scooped up in a big hand and shoved into a stinky pocket. Apparently they had seen me and decided that I would be just the thing to try and sell. Apparently they had forgotten that even creatures that look like animals did not always think like animals. Now, once I recovered from the stench of the pocket I had been rudely tossed into, I decided it was not necessary to show the shape-shifting skill off. Instead, I just listened to the conversation and found we were headed to a fair where they figured they could sell me. Yeah, right. On the road to this fair, we were joined by a couple of people also going to the fair. That was my first glance of Kat and Ivy. I could tell by the way Kat and Ivy looked at me that they knew I was more than just an animal. When the brigands that had kidnapped me started drinking enough at the tavern to forget to keep an eye on me, I slipped out of the pocket I was in and snuck into a much better smelling pocket and left with Kat and Ivy when they left the tavern. Once they knew I was there, it was decided instead of going to the fair, we would go to Prism Crossing. The trip was quite a long ways, so of course the three of us became well acquainted. And after becoming comfortable with both Ivy and Kat, I allowed them to know of all the shape-shifting abilities. Once the fact that I was able to go from human to 2 different sizes of dragons, they decided to introduce me to the head of the Karmafia. I did not know it at the time, but they had an idea that the abilities they knew about could be put to good use. They just didn't realize all of the abilities I had. As we were traveling, I became tired of riding in a pocket, regardless of how good it smelled. So I asked if there was an extra shoulder to ride on. Kat and Ivy both gave me strange looks. Wouldn't you be kind of heavy for us to carry on a shoulder, they asked. No, I said. I'm no heavier than any animal the size I am right now. That is why I'm able to be in your pocket without it ripping. Kat was still looking skeptical, so I climbed out of the pocket, took off, flew a circle around their heads, and landed gently on her right shoulder. Since her cape hood was down, I made sure that my wings stayed untangled from her long hair. I balanced on her shoulder as we made our way on down the road. Under my claws, I felt a vibration and thought to myself, what the heck? It was Kat laughing as she started doing flips going down the road. I guess she was checking if she could knock me off her shoulder. She couldn't. As soon as I felt the first flip start, my tail wrapped around her neck. Gently, since she is not someone I want to take from the land of the living. As we continued along, I began to feel antsy, not able to sit still at all. I let them know that I was going to take a short flight and stretch my wings. So I took off, following the road so I didn't get lost, and just looking around. I had never been here, so it all looked different from the forest area that I had been living in. There were no large trees around at all. I did see these round, ball-type things that were 2 different colors. Some were light green and some were purple like me. I landed near them as my curiosity got the better of me. I poked one of the green ones, and it felt very firm, almost hard. Then I poked one of the purple ones, and instead of being hard like the others, it was squishy. I decided that I had been letting some of the skills that I had get rusty. So I gathered a couple of handfuls of both the green and the purple balls and put them in my pouch. Taking to the air again, I flew back to where Cat and Ivy were at, but I was so high up, and being the size I was, they didn't notice that I was there. The first they knew of me being around was when one of the green balls exploded on a rock in front of them. One of the skills that I had let lapse was being able to hit a target from far away. Being an adventurer, it had come in handy a few times, so there was really a good reason to practice. Of course, seeing the jumps from Cat and Ivy when the rock was hit tickled my funny bone. The next rock that I aimed at was smaller and closer to them. What got me in trouble was I threw a purple ball, and when it hit the rock, it made a mess. Cat happened to catch the motion of me throwing it, so she knew what had been done. She gave me a dirty look and said, "Damn it, Purple. Now we are all dirty." I landed and walked toward them, apologizing and changing into human form until I became about the size of a small 5'2" human. As I got close to Cat and Ivy, I reached up and squeezed their shoulders in apology, and between one breath and the next, we were next to a gently steaming pond. We had transported to the pond so that cleanup could be done in comfort. When asked why that had not been done before to make the trip shorter, I explained that I could only do it to a place that I had seen. Well, I found out those green and purple balls actually had two names. One was grape, the green color ones were unripe grapes, and the purple ones were ripe grapes. The ripe grapes were what got a second name. Apparently, when the ripe grapes became dehydrated, they were called raisins. When I was being told about the raisins, I was told that some people like raisins in certain types of salads. As most of you know by now, sitting still and staying in one place is not something I do easily or well. I was getting itchy feet and wings, so I decided to go exploring again. I had seen off to the side of the path I was on something sparkly and blue, so I took off and flew that direction. Starting off, it did not seem that far away, but it did take a good amount of flying time until I found this huge body of water. I had never seen this much water in one place. I landed by the edge of the water to rest my wings and give my legs some exercise walking around the water. I wandered out into the water where I found myself really enjoying my legs being wet. Now realize, I had never been around this much water. Where I had lived, there were bodies of water, but never this size. So I decided to get all of me wet, and it was awesome. I was able to move through the water by moving my tail, and boy, could I go fast. So I continued having fun moving through the water, slow and fast. This water was so clear I could even open my eyes and see the different creatures that were also in the water with me. There was one that had some different type of legs, and after counting them, it looked like it had 8 legs. I got closer to the creature, and on those legs, it looked like it had circles. I followed around for a while, and then saw it perch on a rock, and it looked like those circles were things that held it to the rock by what looked like suction. I made sure to stay out of the way of it, because I didn't think it would be good to get too close to something that could wrap you up and suction themselves to you. As I followed this creature around, I realized that I had not taken a breath in a long time. I decided this would not be the time to think about it too much, since I was still underwater. After realizing I had not been breathing for a while, I decided to go up and get out of the water. I got to the surface and then went to the shoreline where I was able to put my feet down on the ground and inhale deeply a couple of times. Since it had turned dark while I was fiddle-farting around in the water, there were bugs with lighted tails flying around looking like moving stars. They looked so pretty, I started watching them. I must have been very tired, because the next thing I remember is the sun coming up. So I stood up and stretched, took a quick dip in the water, grabbed a fish for breakfast, and took off back to where I started from by doing it the quick way since I had been there.